Okay, chapter 3. Finally, we're going to get into something where you're like, I've heard of some of this stuff. It's a little bit less than the nuts and bolts, but I am on page 63, which is 3-1. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about, a z-score. Okay, a z-score is just a standard deviation. Standard deviation is how far away you are to the right or to the left from a mean. Z-scores are very much used, especially on, oops. I have to change this. Okay. Tablet mode, rotation lock. Okay. On. Good. Yay. Good. Okay, so that's not going to goof up things anymore. All right, so z-score is how far away you are from the right or to the left from the mean. If you recall, the mean is the average. Okay? So it says here, means and standard deviation are very useful in describing the entire data set, but sometimes we need more specific methods for describing where individual observations fall within the data set. As an example, let's use specific instance where a student took the ACT test. Overall, the ACT test has a mean of 18 and a standard deviation of 6. For technical reasons, the reported average standard deviation differ. And it says, if Selena scored 28 on the ACT, we can see right away that she scored above the average. In fact, we might judge her score to be way above average. Okay, so let's go with that. So they gave this person scored on the ACT a 28. Is that what they said? Which is a good score on the ACT. Okay. Now, do they have a lot of data on the ACT? What do you think? Have a lot of people taken this test over the years? Yeah, I mean, nationwide, and I'm just going to put an arbitrary value, or I just say this. I'd say the majority of people who have been in high school in the last 20 years have taken either the ACT or the SAT at some point. Now, you might have been like Chris Stirrup, and as you're going through the ACT going, you know what? I haven't used the letter B for a while, so this answer's got to be B. And I will tell you that that's not the best way to do it. But they say this particular person scored a 28. They say that, and I don't know if this data is accurate or not, they say that the average score on the ACT nationwide is an 18, and you get a standard deviation of 6. Okay, so if you look at this, if I go 18 plus 6, I get 24. So this is above 1 standard deviation over the mean. Okay? And that's a Greek letter. It's not a letter 6 for standard deviation. Okay? So how much higher above did this particular person go? Well, we have z-scores that we can use, because right now standard deviations, you're 1, 2, 3, even 4 standard deviations above, or -1, -2, -3, -4 standard deviations below the mean. It just means where did you fall as far as the average went. A z-score can be decimal increments of it. Okay, so they're talking about this person, Selena. We could say, hey, this person was above the average. They were more than 1 standard deviation above the average because they earned a 28. 1 standard deviation above the average would have been a score of a 24 if the mean was 18. Okay, so they did pretty darn well as compared to everyone else who took this test. Okay, so on a z-score, on just a one-dimensional thing, we're going to call 0 the average, and then we have z-scores of 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. But we have an area in between these that isn't exactly 1, 2, or 3 in the positive or negative direction. Okay? So as far as referring to a z-score, 0 is the average. So whatever your average might be, then we'd add 1, 2, 3 to it, or subtract 1, 2, and 3 going in the negative direction. So if we use the premise that 18 was this, if I add 6 each time, or subtract 6, okay, so this is our mean. This is a +1, +2, +3. Of course, you have the regions in between that you could score. This would be a -1, a -2, and a -3. Okay? So a standard deviation, or a z-score, is the observation minus the mean over the standard deviation. Of course, that would be something that you could easily do. So if we take the example that's given, our person scored a 28. So our observation is the 28. They told us the mean was a 18. And then the standard deviation was a 6. So then we can find the z-score for this particular person. So observation 28 minus the 18 divided by 6. Z equals 10 over 6. 10 over 6 reduces to 5 over 3, which is about 1.67. Okay, so this person in our scenario has a z-score of 1.67 because 5 divided by 3 is roughly 1.67. It's actually 1.6 repeating forever, but we rounded 2 decimal places. So they are 1.67 points above the average. Okay, and we'll talk about tomorrow where this relates to a normal curve. The general equation, if you don't want to use that, will often look like this. Okay, this is the Greek letter mu. Mu is for mean. This is the standard deviation, and obviously this x here would be our observed score. Okay, so why are colleges and universities looking at, say, an ACT or an SAT to show college readiness? Why do you think? Why would a college or university, let's just take the ACT. Let's say they have some cutoff scores. You need to have a 22 or higher on the ACT in order to be admitted to our school. What do you think? Yeah. But did any of you go to Elevation last year? Is this school a little bit different as far as what you were learning there? Is it that harder or here or harder there? Harder here? Okay. So, not to slam on Elevation, but that's something I've heard over and over. Just by my observations, I've heard that. I don't have any actual data. But do we know people who go to other schools? Okay. Have you ever talked to your friends about the class you're in, or you might see some of the work they're doing, and you're like, dude, I was doing that like in 8th grade, and you're a senior. Okay. So Cherry Creek High School, relatively prestigious as far as schools. It's actually the #1 high school in the state as far as test scores go. It's the largest high school in the state as well. Okay? So your high school diploma from Cherry Creek High School is actually known out of school. So that school, let's say that some university is saying, hey, we want a 22, but they also say, dude, this person went to Cherry Creek. Whereas I taught at a school it's coming up on 20 years now. So long ago, I taught at a school in Reno. We had about 400 students per class. So 400 seniors, 400 juniors, sophomores, freshmen, so on and so forth. Okay? My school, with No Child Left Behind, that I used to teach at, this was from George W. and his infinite wisdom and his wife's infinite wisdom, saying, hey, we want all schools to show something called adequate yearly progress. And how we're going to show adequate yearly progress is each state is going to give some sort of standardized test that's going to show there's growth. Okay? My school did not show adequate yearly progress on students. They were going to shut my school down. We were told this. This school, if you don't show adequate yearly progress in the coming year, we are going to shut you down. All of you who work here have to then apply for other jobs in the district or in the state. I had no guarantee of keeping my teaching job because of a mandate that was put in place by the federal government. Okay? So we as teachers are all walking out going, what a bunch of bull poop. In Latin, you know how you say bullshit in Latin? Bovisturcus. So, Bovisturcus, if you ever want to, if a teacher gives you a hard time, Bovisturcus, then unless they know Latin, you should be safe. Don't walk into your Latin class and say that, because they'd be like, hey, you shouldn't say that. So, we're, as teachers and administrators, kind of shaking our heads going, what the heck? And then you get somebody who comes in who's way too motivated to say, hey, teachers, this is what we're going to do that's going to help you do better. Well, I was already teaching the best I knew how to do. I was already, offering every period for kids to get help before and after school. I even came in on Saturdays and told my kids, come see me on Saturday, because my classroom had an exterior door, to get help. But yet, we're going to close you down because you teachers aren't inspiring these kids enough to do well. And in fact, we're going to shut your school down if your kids don't do well on the state mandated test. Okay? Kid you not, this is part of my career. I will tell you, I don't teach all that different here than I taught there. Yes, I have fancier electronic stuff here because it's more of the age. About 3 weeks after we were told by basically our school board and our superintendent that our school was one that would be shut down because our students aren't reaching this, my school was ranked as the 47th best high school in the United States, according to Newsweek, who does the top 1,500 high schools. We were ranked number 1 in the state of Nevada. Now, Stirrup understands what's going on here. I'm giggling because Newsweek said, hey, we're going to compare these two types of things, and that's going to become a ratio. And whatever school has the highest ratio is the best. And whatever has the lowest ratio is the number 1,500 out of the top 1,500. There's more than 1,500 high schools in America. You want to know what the ratio was? This was beautiful. I think I've already disclosed it before. They said, we're going to take the number of graduating seniors. Now, I will kid you not. 400 seniors at my school. I went to a number of the graduations. They would have about 105, 106 seniors graduate out of 400. We all know that's bad. Newsweek, number of graduated seniors divided by the number of AP and IB, International Baccalaureate exams given. Now you want to talk about wagging the dog. If a kid took my IB Math Studies class, which was basically Calculus 1, It wasn't enough for Calc AB, but if they took my math studies course, they took the Math Studies International Baccalaureate test, and because the district was paying for it, we also gave any kid that was taking any IB class, they took the AP exam in that area. So our 100, 105, 106 seniors divided by the number of AP and IB exams given, we had a really kick butt ratio because our dropout rate sucked. It was horrible. So now we're sitting there going, we won. We're not going to lose our job. Because all the newspapers in Nevada were saying, hey, this high school is number 1 in the state. In fact, they're ranked number 47 out of the top 1,500 high schools in America. Look how good they're doing. And of course, the State Department of Education, superintendent, and school board are going, well, shoot, what are we going to do now? They didn't understand statistics. We win. I know it was a bad school. I'm not trying to defend it. But because you pick two different things and say we're going to create a ratio, does not work. You could say, hey, let's take the number of students. Like I could show that Cherry Creek High School is pretty incredible. We already know it is. But we could say, hey, let's take the number of graduating seniors and the price of the cars that their parents drove. I've seen some nice cars. I've seen some nice student cars. I mean, you could tell there's a difference between the teacher parking lot and the student parking lot. Yeah. By about $30,000 in favor of the students.
Oh, how does that work? No.
Yeah. At 2 years ago when they did the graduation, Lamborghini comes through with a kid, Bugatti comes through with a kid, and then there was the cheaper, and there was a couple Ferraris that showed up as well. So, but it's kind of stuff. So my friend, a z-score can be the decimal, or a whole number of a standard deviation. Okay? It's just how far away are you to the right or to the left from the average. All right. So, let's do something like this. Let's say 10 years ago, let's go make it 20 years ago, Billy was in high school. And let's say 20 years ago, follow my story. Let's say Billy scored a 23 on the ACT, and the mean at that point on the ACT, because there wasn't all the tutoring places, was a 16, and the standard deviation back then was 10. Okay? Billy gets done with high school. Billy got married. Billy had a kid. Billy's daughter, in present time, also took the ACT, and Billy's daughter scored a 24 on the ACT, where the average was an 18, and the standard deviation was, say, a 6. So Billy's daughter comes home going, Dad, what'd you get on the ACT? And Billy is pretty proud, saying, well, I got a 23. And the daughter says, ha! I got a 24. I'm smarter than you, Dad. Well, Billy took Stirrup's stats class, and Billy's daughter didn't. So let's figure out this z-score. Observe minus the mean over the standard deviation. Okay, so Billy, we're going Billy's data, observed 23, standard deviation 16, divided by 10. Someone help me out. 23 subtract 16 is 7. 7 divided by 10 is 0.7. So Billy, when Billy took the ACT, Billy was 0.7 above the average. So they were to the right. Daughter took the ACT. So the daughter got the 24 minus the average divided by 6. 24 subtract 18. 6. 6 over 6. Okay. So remember, the average or the mean as far as the z-score goes is 0. Okay, we're not worried too much about score. So who was further to the right on the number line? Billy at the 0.7 or daughter at the 1? What number's bigger? Do you want 70 cents or a dollar? Dollar, right? So the daughter outscored the dad not only as far as the point value, but because of all things changing with all the data, actually had a higher z-score. They were further to the right than the average. So then Billy is a little sad because Billy was happy that he took Stirrup's class, and daughter's rubbing it in, going, haha, you thought you were so smart. Not only did I only get 1 point higher than you on the test, but you were only 0.7 above the average, and I was 1 above the average. So just kind of a silly way to look at it. And a lot of times there is a comparison. Okay? Actually, I made this up off the cuff. I was actually trying to get the daughter to show she had a lesser score, but Stirrup can't do math, so we don't hold too much against him. All right, so how do you feel? Z-score is pretty relatively harmless. Tomorrow is going to be really kind of fun because we start talking about the normal distribution, and that really applies to a lot of good stuff. So for this evening, my friends, I would like you to do 3-1. It's on page 183 and 184. I'll check that off for points come tomorrow. You have the rest of the period, start working on it much faster.